In this video, we're going to be talking about specific considerations for when you encounter triggers on a walk. Now, this subject is not a matter of if, but it's a matter of when you encounter these triggers. And every dog is going to be slightly different based on the level of reactivity we have, what type of triggers bother our dogs the most, and where does the arousal curve take our dog? Is it overexcitement? Is it aggression? Is it fear-based behaviors? Now, regardless of all of those different answers for your specific situation, we have a general framework of how we overcome the triggers and ultimately keep our dog's engagement on us throughout the walk. So the first thing to do to overcome triggers on your walk successfully is the preparation phase. So remember, that is going to be our priming, our warm-up, our drills that we do before we even leave the vicinity. We start off by doing it inside the home, and then as we work our way outside the home, whether it's a foot outside the front door or in this case out on the driveway, we have our training wheels down. We have Rooster out here on a place bed, and here is where I want you to practice everything we could potentially want our dog to do out on the walk. We do it here in the driveway as a warm-up, out kind of dipping our toe into the real world. So we have Rooster out here right now in the driveway where, regardless of the scenery that you live on, you are out in your environment that you're going to be walking in. There could be cars, there could be dogs, people, cats, squirrels, you name it. That could happen out here, but we're closer to the comfort zone, if you will, to the home environment that he's most comfortable in. So it's going to help us be successful early on. But when we come out here, we're going to be practicing the down, the sit. Place is a great way to warm up, to work on that duration. We're going to be doing our circle drills, which are going to come into play here as we advance and go through specific situations, the recall, and then most importantly, the actual follow command. So before we even leave the driveway, remember your warm-ups. We're going to practice the follow all throughout the driveway, inside the front door, back outside again. You can even start this process inside the home and bring it outside. So that first step to be successful overcoming triggers is the preparation phase. Get your dog used to feeling e-collar stimulation, collar guidance through leash pressure. All of these things need to be accomplished before we head out into the real world where triggers are inevitably waiting for us to encounter. Don't forget to practice all of your commands along the way as you move away from the comfort zone. So as soon as you step outside of your driveway and you begin the walk, you have all of your turnarounds, your stops, your circle drills. These are all still at your disposal. So let's talk about a residential area. As we're moving through, if we start encountering a trigger coming towards us or passing by us, and they're on the far other end of the road, if you have a good amount of separation, I would say anything over about 10 feet, you can practice your pull-offs, right? So we have Rooster in a sit here. This is where we can stop, use the sit or the down to let that trigger pass by us as they are on the opposite side of the street. That gives us a good enough cushion that our dog should be able to watch. And as they're observing, remember, we have our treats sitting here. So as our dog engages with us visually, we can reward them with treats for engaging with us rather than engaging at the dog. If they get out of the sit or the down to react to that trigger, that's where we use our corrections, our e-collar, our leash, combination of all of them to reset them back into the obedience position and then give them a treat for paying attention to us. We're trying to change the emotion and we're trying to teach them neutrality. One very key part to remember during your stationary drills, Rooster, down, is if we are stopping our dogs and we want them to be stationary, instead of standing here like I was at the beginning of this explanation, right next to Rooster's side, I want you to remember your circle drills. This is exactly why we provide a 10-foot leash with our training program, because the second that I move away from my dog and I start doing circles around them, it puts them in a predicament where they have to make a choice. They have to either look at the trigger and engage, or they look at us, yes, to see where we're going, and make eye contact. If we stay right next to them, they can feel our presence even if we're not physically touch them. They know we're right there, so why would they ever look away from that trigger? They're just going to stay loaded and locked in on it. And then the second that that dog does something, or that trigger does something that they don't like, could cause the reaction. So the second that you move away from them and they're like, oh, mom or dad isn't there, now they have to look back and try to locate you. So when I do my stops, I'm very conscious about actually moving around them and enforcing our dog's position. They're not allowed to move, but in doing this, I can move around him, I can do my leash drills, and I'll always come back to where he's at to reward him. The other thing you can do as you get more advanced, again, this is when the trigger's on the other side of the road, you just continue walking. So if I have an entire 2-lane road in between us and the trigger, I should be able to continue walking, reinforce the happy bubble, and pass by that trigger. My dog may look at them, but then he's not allowed to leave that happy bubble, and I will give him treats for engaging with me, and I will give him corrections if he decides to get away from that happy bubble. But you can do the stops and the observation drills with the circles, or you just continue walking on your side of the street. If you're walking with your dog and you encounter a trigger that's coming at you from the same side of the road or a narrower path, I would say anywhere from 10 feet and closer to you, you need to be thinking proactively, have your head on a swivel and think, how can I set myself up for success? Now, a lot of people like to do is if the road is clear and your trigger's on this side of the road, you just simply cross over and continue on. That is not necessarily a bad decision. If you're on kind of a path that there's no traffic considerations, an ideal advanced way to handle that trigger is that you would arc out, giving them enough room to pass by safely, and then you will regain your original path of travel and continue on when you pass the trigger. However, if you're still on the confidence building phases of things and you're not 100% there yet, it's okay. What I would do, driveways are a great spot. If you don't have driveways and you're in an apartment type lifestyle or on a bike path, go ahead and step off that path. Give yourself, I would say, a 10-foot bubble if you can. But step halfway up that driveway, get your dog to sit and lay down, let them pass by you if they so choose. But you have to be assessing that trigger itself. And I'm talking about a dog in this case. People running and on bikes, that's very easy to judge. But if that person has another animal, you have to now figure out how long of a leash do they have that you're dealing with? How in control is that dog to determine a safe distance to give yourself? Because if they have a retractable 30-foot leash and they have no intention of using it, I want you to be smart and try to avoid that situation, even if it means that we turn and we head back the other way to go ahead and give ourselves a more productive outlet. The last thing I want to make sure that you guys remember is when we have specific triggers for our dog, specific triggers that bother our dog, we really want to make sure that we're not avoiding those triggers on a regular basis. The more exposure we can give to our dog in a controlled sense, the better they're going to be with it. So whether it's dogs barking behind fences, cats, squirrels, vehicles, kids, you name it, we need to try and get as much controlled exposure as we can to them, to that trigger. So when the trigger is happening around you, if you need to give yourself more space to feel confident, then go ahead and do that. But as you get better and you start to try to overcome these triggers, think about how can I continue to expose my dog. A good example is if there's kids playing a game that bothers my dog, if there's an animal behind a fence that bothers my dog, I'm not going to leave that area. I'm going to stay in that area for a few minutes until the reactivity diminishes and I can get my dog to overcome that reactivity. A great example is the dog barking behind the fence. We have all day long that I can take my dog, let them stop and observe from a comfortable distance, and then I know that I'm going to be walking through the gauntlet, if you will. So I will practice all of my turnarounds, my figure 8 drills, my recall commands, my stops and my sits. I will do everything I can that's in my arsenal. Sit right there with that trigger happening near me, but at a safe distance. So that way my dog can learn that it's just background noise and nothing it truly doesn't bother them. And that's why we preach, seeking out your triggers and looking at them as a training opportunity versus something to be scared and worried about. So I want you, if you have to rewatch this video a couple of times, then please do that, especially after graduation when you're going through your struggles. But remember every little step that we took from the front door, even before the front door, from inside the home till we get out the front door, till we get on the driveway or outside the front door area. And as we advance through the neighborhood, just continue to find what works best for your dog. Some dogs will respond better from collar pressure. Some will respond better to e-collar stimulation. Some need a combination of both. But really switch that mentality to understanding you will see the trigger at some point, and we need to be ready with our handler actions when that opportunity does arise.